Hello, this training is designed to provide a brief overview of Riverside County Department of Mental Health's policy and procedure for interrupting an involuntary hold prior to the arrival at a designated facility. This training will take approximately 20 minutes to complete. In Riverside County, there are some unique challenges in applying the 5150 law in a way that best meets the needs of consumers and the community. The most significant concern is available bed space. Riverside County has a population of 2.3 million people, but has under 150 locked psychiatric beds. Multiple steps are being taken to address this problem, but in the meantime, we are aware that local emergency departments are often delayed in placement of an individual on an involuntary hold after they have been medically cleared. To address this issue, Riverside County Department of Mental Health is working with local emergency departments to help divert individuals who do not need an involuntary hospitalization and to interrupt holds for individuals who no longer meet 5150 criteria. Per Riverside County Department of Mental Health, anyone who is authorized to write an involuntary hold can also interrupt an involuntary hold, providing that written justification is given. Aside from Riverside County Department of Mental Health employees, this process of interrupting was optional, and each agency followed their own plan of implementation. In recognition of your skill and professional relationships with local emergency departments, the policy has been adapted and this training has been developed to provide you with an overview of the nuances of 5150 application and to assist in the standardizing of documentation when an individual in Riverside County who is awaiting a bed in a designated facility is found to no longer meet the 5150 criteria. Before we get into the process for interruption, I just want to briefly cover the categories, particularly grave disability, as this will be the basis for your documentation of an interrupted 5150. With regards to danger to self, the definition is as a result of mental health symptoms, the person is at risk to either end their life or cause significant injury to themselves. While danger to self is generally intentional, it may also be unintentional, such as when an individual who is in a manic state believes they can fly, they would be considered danger to self and also possibly gravely disabled. When it comes to children, we are required to consider how risk may impact physical and emotional development. This may become a factor if someone is restricting food or ingesting non-edible matter. The definition for danger to others is as a result of mental health symptoms, the person is at risk of harming others. Again, this may or may not be intentional. For example, some individuals experiencing psychosis or even significant anxiety may perceive others to be a threat and may put others at risk in an attempt to, quote, protect themselves. Also, case law makes it clear that this category does not include the destruction of property unless this action places others in harm's way. With grave disability, we have some nuances. Due to case law, Riverside County expands the definition of grave disability beyond the traditional food, clothing, and shelter definition. Riverside County Department of Mental Health defines grave disability as an inability to access or utilize means to sustain life due to mental health symptoms. These expansions have arisen from case law as well as interpretations by Riverside County's County Council. In these situations, the person is both gravely disabled as they are unable to care for themselves and a danger to self as their actions put their lives in danger. So in the previous example where the individual who is in a manic state is experiencing a delusion that they can fly off a 5-story building, They would be considered both gravely disabled as they are unable to care for themselves and a danger to self as their actions put their lives in danger. If someone is intentionally trying to harm themselves, they are just danger to self. If their behavior meets criteria for grave disability, but it is not eminently putting their life at risk, they would only be gravely disabled. For example, someone who is refusing shelter due to a delusion, however, it is April and the weather is mild, they might be gravely disabled, but not danger to self, as it is unlikely that they would have medical consequences due to exposure. Medical conditions may also meet criteria for grave disability and likely danger to self if the refusal for care is based upon mental health symptoms and the refusal of care places the individual at risk of serious injury or death. The example that we have seen before is an individual who is generally compliant with their insulin treatment for diabetes when on psychiatric medications is starting to refuse their insulin after stopping their psychiatric medications due to a belief or delusion that it is poisoned. As a result of this change in behavior due to the delusion, now they are experiencing dangerously high levels of blood sugar and therefore would be considered gravely disabled and a danger to self. Again, with children, we must consider how risk behavior may impact development, so the threshold may be lower. The law clearly states that mandated reporting such as TerraSoft, Child Protective Services, and Adult Protective Services reporting are not negated by involuntary hospitalization, nor are they invalidated if the person no longer meets criteria for a 5150. While your agency has its own policies and procedures for following these laws, it is strongly recommended that even if it was not your responsibility to complete the reports, that you ensure the reports have been completed before interrupting the hold. Once you have determined that an individual no longer meets criteria for an involuntary hold, please do the following. Draw a line in black ink diagonally across the form. In the blank space next to the form name and confidentiality statement, please write "interrupted by" with your name, ID number with your employee or badge ID number, and then the date and the time which the hold was interrupted. You will also need to document your justification on a separate progress note, which we will now cover. An example of each of these documents is attached. We also request that you read the entirety of the attached policy. There is no specific form to complete when doing your justification for a hold interruption. You may use your agency's progress note as long as the documentation contains the essential information. The initial part of the justification includes basic information about how the hold was brought to your attention and your role at the agency. You want to note how the initial mental health symptoms responsible for the risk have changed since the initial hold, as well as how the risk has been resolved. Finally, document the completion of any mandated reporting. In addition to identifying how the specific risk has been resolved for the moment, what is their plan for the next few days? Generally, you want to make sure that you have documented their plan to address both the mental health symptoms and the risk issues, as well as their plan if these symptoms or risk return. If others are involved in the safety planning, please include their name and contact information along with their role in assisting the individual. What is the person's plan to follow up with voluntary mental health services and document their next scheduled appointment? While not required, I generally like to have all participants, including the individual on the hold, sign the safety plan indicating understanding and agreement. Again, this is not required. It is just a suggestion. Once you have completed that information, the original hold, along with a copy of the written justification, needs to be faxed to our Quality Improvement Office. The actual original hold and justification should be maintained in the person's medical record, and you may wish to keep a copy for your own records as well. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact our Quality Improvement Unit. Thank you so much for your service and support. We ask that you please sign the attached acknowledgement form indicating the completion of this course, and thank you for your time.